There, this is Aliki from the Stress Conversion Summit, and today we have with us Candace Badgett. Welcome, Candace.
Thank you, Aliki. I'm so happy to be here.
You're one of several, I think 20 international trustees for the Transcendental Meditation Organization globally, and for women and girls, and actually teaching meditation and teaching others to teach meditation. That's something else that you've done throughout the ages, I guess, yeah?
It's somewhat a new focus to really create a women's organization within the Transcendental Meditation movement that was launched about 7 years ago. And at that time, there was a group of us. We were women. We were asked to take this charge and to make sure that all of the programs that have been revived from this beautiful tradition of Vedic science, which is basically the home of yoga and meditation and Ayurvedic medicine and Vedic astrology and so many different modalities that contribute so significantly to improve quality of life. So to really bring these programs in the context of the needs and the issues facing women and girls today. So it's been probably the most enlightening of all of the activities that we have been involved with in the Transcendental Meditation Organization, really to fathom the kind of issues that we're dealing today as women, the opportunities that are at hand, and how to maximize the opportunities, and as you're focusing on in these days, minimize the stress.
And in fact, that's why I initially came to TM. And when I was in San Francisco, the Bay Area, and of course, being being a leader and a manager and my background, I've always sought what I can do to be a better leader, not only to myself but to others, and help bring out the best in others. And when I came across TM, it was just such a different. It was just a different method, but very absorbable, understandable. There's the science behind it. There's the proven, the tests and the research. And it's not like I did research to prove a point. It's just I've always naturally been a drifter or a meditator because I have this creative mind too. But the formula and what I learned through TM just changed so much. So many things for me. And the thing I love about it, it's a community-based thing. It's a global-based opportunity to meet with other people in the TM world. And a lot of people do TM, and in fact, a lot of stars do TM too that are advocates for the programs that you teach and run. And it's just, look, Transcendental Meditation is just an amazing method for whatever it does, because it's like you almost just get out of the way and learn to surrender on a different level. And it's just been so amazing for me. So
I love the description when you just said just surrender and get out of the way, because I think that's exactly where the real effectiveness, that's where it comes from. And that is, it's a technique that is simply utilizing the natural tendency of the mind to basically seek out its own source, which is an inner reservoir of silence and creativity and intelligence and bliss. And when all we need to do is, like you say, get out of the way and allow a natural, inherent mechanism to be activated, there's no concentration, there's no, there's no intense focus involved. It doesn't involve effort. It's not something that you think I've got to work to do this, or I need to take many years to perfect this. It's simply just sitting down and allowing a natural ability to take place. And I think what people find to be so fascinating about it is that it does feel so natural. And then, of course, the question naturally arises, well, if it's so natural, why don't I just experience this all the time? But this is where, this day and age, our attention is being pulled out all the time.
And it's pulled out. That's the operative word. And what I, just to reiterate too for the ladies listening, the natural tendency of your internal mechanism and bringing more of that out of you versus being drawn and pulled into multiple directions, that's the essence. And if you could put words on it, of what you're getting through spending time with your own nature. That's what I found, and I love that. So let's keep going on that point. So pulling out of you, like attention and what we have to do in our lives.
Right. You know, I mean, it's just from the moment we get up, we got to get the kids off to school, we got to get to work, we've got to get this in order, we get to work, we've got so many deadlines, we come home and we just want to chill out, we turn on the TV. It's those sensory faculties being drawn out continuously. And when we finally just sit and close our eyes, we're so tired, we just fall asleep. So we're missing this opportunity to direct our senses inward and yet remain awake. And that's when that mechanism kicks in. Literally, a fourth state of consciousness becomes accessible to us. And it's as natural as the other three states of consciousness, waking, dreaming, and sleeping. And yet it's something we're missing just because we don't know how to turn on that simple switch. And in the same way that if we were deprived of sleep, we wouldn't fare well. In the same way, over time, if we are deprived of this fourth state of consciousness, which is this inner silence that's completely alert and awake at the same time, an infinite reservoir of creativity and intelligence, self-sufficiency, happiness that's accessible to us anytime. So what do we need to do? We just need to be reminded that we can activate this. Set 20 minutes aside twice a day, morning and afternoon. Yep. And that field of energy and intelligence just begins to infuse itself into our daily lives.
And that infusion and that practice and the consistency of it. Some people are like, well, I don't have time to meditate, or how am I going to find that time? I barely have 20 minutes to even have a cup of tea or just sit and eat properly. That's a question I'm sure you get. I'd love to hear your response, but what I'd also love to offer is I simply find that when I spend time with my own nature and replenish and charge from the inside, just like Candace was describing, it's almost like you recharge yourself with your own natural abilities. One, you recharge. Two, you're spending time with your own nature. What that does is send a message out to the universe in a way that you're invested in yourself and your well-being. And therefore, when you're coming from a place where you're not fragmented but more whole, all of a sudden you're more powerful. You magnetize the right people, places, things that you need. The time becomes more abundant. You're not so distracted. You feel more balanced. Even your hormones start to balance out. And we'll talk a little bit about the medical research that's come out. But that's just my little rendition in language, if I could put any words on it. But
it's perfect.
That time shows up, energy shows up, youthfulness, vibrance, and vitality shows up. I mean, I'm almost 40 and I still have my natural hair color, and I'm working around the clock to produce this beautiful body of work in this summit series. But I'm so inspired. I have so much energy because I'm spending the time recharging myself.
I think the point that you're really bringing out is that investment of 20 minutes twice a day literally yields an amazing return in terms of your efficiency. So you end up getting more done during the day. You think, I don't have 40 minutes, I don't have 20 minutes twice a day to give up. And yet it's remarkable that you do, because now you're more creative, you're more efficient. Yes. And the most important thing is you're more happy. I can't stress this enough. There's so much focus today on compassion. And it's beautiful, but you have to face the fact that we cannot be truly compassionate, and yes, unless we're happy. So this baseline of happiness is not just for us, it's for our ability to give. And if we're dealing with our own needs, you can't give to the extent that when you're full yourself. So this quality of happiness, it energizes us. It fills us up. It gives us the ability to be compassionate compassionate to give and transform our environment. So if I had to say anything, I would say happiness is the bottom line. It's really, and it's the biggest gift, I would say, that comes from transcendental meditation.
Now, there's some science behind this too, isn't there, Candace? Would you share a little bit about how, if we could say, like being the light or in that state, what happens in terms of the effect that has on others, and through compassion as one example?
Well, first and foremost, we can start with what ends up happening in the body, because the mind and the body are so intimately connected. And with every mental or emotional experience, there is that physiological or chemical correlate. And now this is so well known that, there are the happiness hormones, there's serotonin and dopamine and everything else. And so when we actually transcend and experience these more refined levels of the thinking process, and then ultimately in transcendental meditation, we transcend or go beyond the thinking process altogether. And now that sounds very abstract, and a very good way of describing it is that we become aware of awareness itself. Now, what's so interesting about this experience is that it's an unbounded experience. It's unbounded because the mind is used to being confined to the boundaries of a thought. So even if we're thinking about the universe, we're still confined, in a sense, by the thought about the universe. So the mind is always constrained by whatever thoughts it's moving through. When we transcend the thinking process altogether, there are no boundaries. We've transcended the thinking process, so it is an unbounded experience that is self-sufficient. It's as if the mind has come home to its own ground state, and the bliss that's produced is something that then just becomes infused. Now, naturally, there's a physiological correlate.
Yes.
So just as when we're asleep, if we were in a room and we were hooked up to electrodes and the door was closed and nobody could see what we were doing, but they could see the electrodes of our brain and the chemistry, they would know we were asleep. They would know.
Yes.
So there is a physiological signature for every state of consciousness, waking, dreaming, sleeping. In the same way, when we transcend the thinking process altogether, it's a fourth state of consciousness because it has its own unique physiological signature. And that means cortisol and all these stress-related chemicals that wear the body down, those are significantly decreased. Serotonin, dopamine, all of the happiness, that chemicals, hormones that are rejuvenating, regenerating for the whole physiology, those increase.
Yes.
Brainwave coherence becomes maximum. This means that the two left and right lobes of the brain, they start to function in synchrony. There's greater communication. There's also very interesting brainwave activity in the alpha range, which is indicating high coherence, integration. It's a very kind of relaxed state, but maximally alert. So it's a signature that you do not see outside of this process of transcending. And all of these things, because the brain drives every system in the body, an efficiently functioning brain is going to give rise to an efficiently functioning physiology. So the whole experience is so restorative that many of the documented benefits are in the whole area of health.
And actually, as you described it, I felt it. Like I felt the feeling that you feel, like just by hearing you, because you've been doing this for so long, and it's just such a profound tool. But for the women out there, it brings on the homeostasis and that inner balance just by simply doing the exercise in the spot. And the thing I love about this, Candace, is when we travel, when we're in cars, when we're commuting, when we're in office buildings, particularly when we travel in corporate or professional lives, you don't need anything but somewhere to sit. Even when you're on the aeroplane.
That's right.
But the coherence, the sharpness, the alertness, you become so much more efficient. And it's profound. It's an experiential thing too, right? So allocating that time, you cultivate that for yourself. You can't read this in a book. It's a practice.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. Because what we're doing in transcendental meditation is we're basically opening the mind to the very source of the thinking process. It's going to impact every area of life, and there's an emotional value too, which is so important for us. And Aliki, you and I were speaking earlier about that nourishing power that women have innately, just because we've been made to be mothers.
Yes.
It's such an important gift we have to give to the world, and that is our connection to those very fine levels of feeling and emotion, that we can be connected in to that level of who we are. And what happens so often in the corporate world is that because women take in stress more deeply than men do, there's so much research on this now, and I think it does have to do with this openness to our own emotional reality. The first response is often to start shutting down on that very tender and emotional level, just to protect ourselves. And what's so unfortunate about this is that our power lies there. It lies in those tender values of feeling and emotion and intuition. It's such a gift we have to bring to the table. And when we begin to protect ourselves and shut that off, we lose our inner compass. And then we become so vulnerable to the opinions all around us, which is in the business world, where things change so quickly. You want to bring so much innovation and creativity to every situation. You need to be connected to your creativity, which is there on that delicate level of intuition and feeling. So this is where our strength is, and yet at the same time, we feel we need to shut that off to survive in a corporate world. So we've really got kind of a conflict there. How do we survive, and yet you have access to our most powerful tool for creativity? Such an issue women are facing today. And this is where TM is the gift, because it keeps us connected to our authentic voice. It keeps us anchored in those fine values of feeling that we move through every time we transcend. And yet, we're activating that invincibility, that self-sufficiency, that strength within ourselves, and even that physical endurance, where we're structuring in our own protection while at the same time staying anchored to our authentic voice. And for this reason alone, transcendental meditation is absolutely essential for every woman in the corporate world. Every woman anywhere for that matter. It's really something, like you were saying, it's so flexible. We can grab at any time, shut the door in our office, grab our 20 minutes, come back, and really maintain our authentic voice. That's where our power is. That's where our gift is.
That's so true. And instead of shutting it down, leaning into it and allowing the natural intelligence to do what it's got to do. And you just hit the nerve right on the head. I love when you said the source and then the inner compass. And that's the thing. With women, we're so emotionally or intuitively aware, and we can react a lot. We've got these hormones and everything else but our environment, and then so much to juggle. And we're also women. We birth and bear children, but we're designed to do that. So we do a lot more than meets the eye, perhaps to, many other people. But that vulnerability or that place and creating resilience, that's what TM gives you.
That's a good word.
A gift. Yeah, resilience, right? It gives
resilience. Great. And what is it today? What is it today that's the most cherished qualities we can possibly have to move through life? It's adaptability and flexibility, because things are changing so fast all the time. It's not investing in information per se, because the information changes so fast.
Yes.
We have to invest in our creativity, our adaptability, our ability to intuit that which isn't always obvious on the surface. These are our gifts as women. They're our natural gifts. So we have to develop them. We have to hang on to them. And TM is a great gift for this.
And you know, I will mention this, and I have mentioned it in another when I actually talk to women as well about the economics of well-being. Harvard and INSEAD, and it's all over the place. You can see where it's quoted if you want to Google it. They also quote that the modern executive, the 21st century executive, the two key tools that every executive must have is meditation and intuition. And they're the two key tools they talk about. And most people like say, well, how do you do that? Or how do you create intuition? Well, it's a byproduct of the meditation. Absolutely. And it absolutely is. There's no denying it. And that is critical. And as women, as creativity, it just starts to spark that on all centers. But and how to do it? Well, TM is how to do it. There's a process. And it's I just love how simple it is.
Well, the other thing is, I was thinking the other day that so many people now, the big buzzword is mind, body, spirit. And that integrating these values. So we want to, and so we can get into Ayurveda in a little bit here, because then we're really addressing the body, because we can also, the same way the mind affects the body can affect our clarity and thinking as well. But it's the spirit component that really gets left out, because so many times what people think of as spirit is really still within the arena of the mind. It's subtler values of the thinking process, but the thoughts and feelings are still really in the mental realm.
Yes.
So spirit is really that absolute abstract field of pure intelligence. And to be able to access this. So there's so many meditations out there where they say, okay, watch your thoughts, just watch your thoughts. Now, that can have its value, but it will not have its value in transcending the thinking process, because it keeps you involved in the thinking process. Or if there's a meditation technique of concentration where you picture your mind as a calm lake, or you concentrate on a candle or something specific. Yeah. Again, we're holding the mind within the realm of thoughts, whether it's a subtle thought or a big thought. So these can have their value. It's not to say they don't. But what we want to add to the whole picture is transcending the thinking process altogether and really gaining that value of spirit in mind, body, spirit integration. Because spirit simply means that which is not material, that which is purely abstract, unbounded, infinite, and eternal. Mm-hmm. And we have that aspect of ourself. We have that aspect that is eternal and unbounded, and we just need to access it. And then we've brought everything to bear. We have brought everything to bear in unfolding our potential.
And I love that. We brought everything to bear in unfolding our potential through the transcendental process. And one thing I'd love to offer as well, and just share my personal experience, as a mum and raising my child as a single mum, because the first 4-6 months, and I wasn't rigorous on like sleep training and crying out. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to intuit and go with the flow and really not read books and get jaded about it. So what I found I used to do, because my child would react off me. The children react off you.
Yes.
So back to bringing the emotions, the vulnerability, particularly in my position. It's like I turn into a lioness. It was like a protective thing. It's like you turn into an animal. It's just crazy. But through the process of incorporating the meditation, either when I was breastfeeding or resting next to my son, when he was resting, or if I could rest, I had to somehow accelerate my ability to sleep and rest and purge stress and fatigue from the body, quite simply because I had no help. And it was, it's all up to the mum to feed the child, look after the child, nurture the child, nourish the child. And when the child gets reactive or crying, the calmer you are as a mother, similarly with the people around you that you work with, the calmer or more centered or more poised that you are, things are just a lot more fluid and with more flow. And and so the net was, I caught up on so much sleep because I meditated so much. It's phenomenal. And my son's only 3 now, but I don't feel haggard or exhausted or loopy or anything through the post, having the baby after. It just helped regulate me. And that's why I really, truly, deeply love this technique.
It's so beautiful to hear, Aliki. And I think really the greatest gift we can give to our children is our own equanimity, our own fullness, our own lack of stress is really, they're just looking to us. They want to see that stability. They want to see that security, and they want to see that nourishing value coming towards them at all times. And so whatever we can do to be that for them is the greatest gift we can give them. It's beautiful what you just said.
Thank you. And, I mean, I just wanted to be authentic in sharing my personal experience. One, because, we're graced with Candace presence right now, and this information, it has such a practical effect in life. I mean, I've got university degrees, but the practical effect of what TM has done for me is so much more than that'll ever give me, I'll be quite honest.
Well, it's really a great point that you're bringing out, and really important for everyone to hear, and that is the practice of meditation is not actually for the sake of the practice itself. It is for the benefits in activity. And it's a great, because that's a big misunderstanding out there, and it's a great point to bring out. It's just very, very practical.
And I love what you said too. It's not about stopping the mind or watching the thoughts and holding on to them or analyzing and overanalyzing everything. There's the different levels of the brain that you achieve and attain through just the practice, and it gets deeper and deeper every time.
Yeah, it gets deeper over time, absolutely. But what's so amazing is a lot of the research that was done on transcendental meditation was done on relatively new meditators. So the benefits come right away. And there was another interesting thing. You were making reference to some of the research.
Yes, please.
And that is, there was a 9-year longitudinal study that recently came out with people who had weaknesses in the area of cardiovascular disease.
Yes.
And the result was really quite astounding, because compared to the control group, the group that was practicing transcendental meditation had basically a 50% reduction in stroke, heart attack, and death. And this has never been achieved through any other means than pharmaceutical drugs, which have their adverse side effects.
Yeah.
So because of this study, the American Heart Association just recently came out. They did a very exhaustive, you could say they researched all of the studies on meditation, because what's happening today is so many doctors are finding that their patients are requesting alternatives to pharmaceutical drugs.
Yes.
So much so that the doctors turn to the American Heart Association and say, please, can you give us your recommendation? What can we tell our heart patients who are looking for an alternative approach to dealing with their chronic disorders? And the American Heart Association concluded that they could only recommend transcendental meditation. They researched all of the meditation techniques, and it was the only one that had the research that showed, that the results were as significant, if not more, than taking drugs. So these are very significant findings, and this is all coming out at a time when there's a very fascinating field of medical research called epigenetics.
Yes, epigenetics, yes.
Epigenetics is very exciting, because what it's telling us is that our genes, our genetic makeup is not our destiny. It was thought before, whatever your genetic map was, that was it. If you had cancer in your family, then the likelihood you would have cancer, that was there in your genes. This is no longer a valid viewpoint.
Wow.
Because what they find now is that we control what genes are turned on or turned off by virtue of our lifestyle choices. And meditation now, we just launched a big study with TM and its effect on epigenetics, or switching on genetic tendencies, and it's looking very, very exciting.
And so what that gives us, one, there's an alternate way to enhance your quality of life.
Absolutely.
And even if you are on medication, or you're on meds, or you have anxiety or depression, whatever it is that you are suffering from, because that's a level of suffering, it just is.
Absolutely.
If you start to infuse something like this, just in drip feed, daily, the quality of life, the enhancement and the enrichment that you feel and start to develop is incredible. And to have like research like this over such a deep period of time, and like you said, with relatively new meditators, I mean, the effect is, it's actually incredible pretty much straight away.
There's
straight away. Like I'm just going to say it, people start to lose weight. You're generally a lot happier. You're generally a lot more balanced. Your hormones are more balanced. You don't need to eat as much. Your body is absorbing food a lot better. The body's calmer. It's working more optimally, efficiently. But the epigenetics and epigenics, it's those studies to say that you're now more in power of
that's it.
Of your own health and well-being by implementing some high-quality tools like a TM, like a high-quality Ayurveda herb. And some of the best herbs in the world that have the most research are actually known as Ayurvedic herbs too. In fact, I was just laughing before, I've got my Vata tea here. The Maharishi Ayurveda calming tea. Calming tea, it's very good, ladies. But you're more empowered to take control of your personal health.
And in so many ways, even just adjusting our daily routine, just by going to bed on time, just by eating more fruits and vegetables, just by meditating twice a day. Mm-hmm. These kinds of things, it's now being acknowledged by medical science that these have a very powerful effect on your health, and not only your health, but on your children's health, because this will affect the genetics of your children. What you do, how you live, will affect your children. So it's just, it's very freeing in a way. It's very exciting. And it's interesting to watch modern science coming around to meet ancient science. It's a very exciting time we're living in, because when you look at Ayurveda, which is a 6,000-year-old system of medicine, the basic principles that it is founded on are the very principles that modern science is now coming to embrace, and that is prevention. The National Institutes of Health here in the U.S. are now investing huge amounts into research on prevention. They're taking it very seriously. Up until now, prevention has been considered to be early detection of disease.
Right.
Now, suddenly modern science is realizing there's a much broader way we can look at prevention. So prevention is big. Epigenetics, which means you have a choice.
Yep.
Your lifestyle choices will dramatically affect your longevity, your quality of life. And the other point, which is what your summit is all about, is stress.
Yeah.
Now, stress is being acknowledged by modern medical science as a significant contributing factor to almost every disease and chronic disorder. So it's very interesting, really. It's an exciting time, because now we begin to see ancient science and modern science really coming to an agreement
Mm.
on how to really improve quality of life.
And again, I will go back to how surprisingly simple the TM technique is. It's so simple, and the structure and TM centers like that are in your local city and the communities that start from that and spending time together. I mean, every Tuesday I go to the local TM center and I sit with the TMers and we meditate during lunchtime.
Yeah,
It's
that's
just
great.
great.
That's great. I think that was really the great gift. You know, Marishi just took something that is inherently there within every mind, every brain, every physiology, and systematized it so that no matter where you go in the world, you'll learn transcendental meditation the exact same way, and it doesn't depend on the any one person. Everyone is trained in the same way and they teach in the same way, and the centers are everywhere around the world. So you can learn in France and then move to the US and get your TM check there and then go to Australia.
I lived in San Francisco, I moved to Australia again, and I'm back at the ports. It's like, hey, it's everywhere.
Right. Absolutely. And we're really looking forward now to creating women's centers,
yes,
where you can just walk into a completely all women's environment, and there's just a certain kind of relaxation that can happen in that kind of environment, and a certain way of communicating and sharing that is just going to be great. So of course we have our regular TM centers, but now we're going to be adding women's centers everywhere.
Yes.
And really talking about women's issues and how to address women's issues through transcendental meditation, through the programs of Maharishi Ayurveda, all the rejuvenation and programs for chronic disorders. Very, very powerful, very effective programs.
Candace, that's such amazing information. Thank you for spending the time with us and sharing the research, a little bit about the effect and benefits with us, and why and how we can empower ourselves a lot more with our health, well-being and happiness factor, and lose that stress, because the stress is going to keep coming. I mean, it just is. That's what modern life is. It's a byproduct of modern dynamically changing lives these days, and to have a tool like this in your toolkit is beyond extraordinary. It is a gift.
It is
just like that breath that we took. This is that much of a gift, and I speak deeply from my own experience.
Well, it's wonderful what you're doing, Aliki, to really bring everyone's attention to everything that's available to them as tools out there in the world today. And we really appreciate what you've put together, and that you've pulled us all together to think about all these things and really extend ourselves to all the women in the world. Together, we can really make a huge transformation in this world. So we need to be strong, and we need to be able to give our nourishing power to this world.
We do.
You're doing a great job in helping that to happen. Thanks.
Thank you so much.